My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review of Inkheart. And this review will have some spoilers, so if you haven't seen it, go and watch it, then come back and watch this review because I will be going in depth. Now, I watched The Golden Compass last week, so I was just like, you know what, let's watch another fantasy movie to end the month of September on. So I watched Inkheart, and this is a movie that this is a very rare occasion. Well, as a kid, I actually read the books and actually really loved the books. And when I first saw this movie as a kid, I was never allowed to watch Harry Potter growing up. So in some ways, this was my Harry Potter. And I do remember enjoying it. I remember liking it as a kid, even though back then I remember the pacing being off. Now, rewatching it for the first time in like 12 years, I think, this movie is not very good. But let's begin talking about the cast, and you've got Brendan Fraser in the lead role. And I'm not saying he's a great actor, but he does have a good screen presence, and I think he carries this movie very well. You've also got Eliza Bennett, who plays his daughter Maggie, and I don't think she's bad in this movie. Not given enough to work with, yes, but not bad. You've also got Sina Gulli, who plays the mom, and yeah, she really has nothing to do. You've got Paul Bettany, who I'm going to say is legitimately really good in this movie. He is trying here, and I think he becomes this character very convincingly. You've also got Helen Mirren, who I liked at the beginning of this movie. I liked her snarky attitude, but after a while, her attitude just became too much. You've also got Jim Broadbent, who was fine, I guess. You've also got Rufy Gavin, who just doesn't stand out in any way. And then you've got the villain played by Andy Serkis. And I think this is maybe Andy Serkis' worst performance. He's really bad here. And with the shaved head, he kind of looks a bit like Mr. Bean. But it doesn't help that he also plays a terribly written villain. Like, there's no reason for me to be invested in his character and his plot in the slightest bit. It just feels so made up on the spot. Like, you have no clue what his goals are, what he's trying to do, what his motivation. He's just Mr. Bad Guy who's being bad because he's bad, and that's as much as you're going to get from him. This movie is directed by Ian Softley, who, if I'm being honest, is a director I'm not familiar with, but I do like some of what he brings to this movie. He brings a certain chaotic atmosphere, and I love the way that he adds in old footage into this movie and shoots it in black and white. I love how he uses Dutch angles. But pacing wise, this movie is a nightmare. Like, it is just all over the place with no build up to anything. Like I said, the bad guy and his goals are so unclear that it doesn't feel like they're building up to anything there. And then the main hero, looking for his wife, he gets captured, he escapes, and then he has to go back. So it just doesn't really build well. It just kind of goes do, and then do. I don't know. It's very messy pacing wise. And I also don't think the CGI in this movie is all too great. Not bad for a $60 million budget though, but there's definitely moments where it stands out. And I don't like the fact that this movie begins with narration. It kind of makes it feel like a trailer, like, in a world. Well, that's what the very first scene feels like. I actually think a good way to begin this movie would have been like the Disney slash Shrek storybook opening where we see the Book of Inkheart and it opens up and then we get some narration introducing the characters. I think that would have been a smart way to do it, and it ends with the book closing. That would have been really fitting for this one. I also think that the script isn't all too good. Now, what I do like is that this movie just kind of throws you into the middle of this conflict. So you just have a bunch of questions. The movie's got your intrigue. You're trying to figure out, who is this guy? Why is he looking for this book? Where is his wife? Who are these people after him? You get lots of questions, but then they all kind of get answered like that. And the way that those answers are revealed aren't all too satisfying. And I also think this movie has some very bad expositional dialogue at that. It's very obvious. Now, one thing I do wish this movie leaned into a bit more is that with Paul Bettany's character, there's this whole aspect of the fact that he knows that he's going to die at the end of the book. And he wants to be a man who can create his own fate, who's not a slave, who takes control. And I think that's a very interesting idea there about fate and whether or not there's free will in life. And I wish you leaned into that and made that into a big thematic element here because that's very interesting. Like it could have had, you know, that Will Ferrell movie, Stranger Than Fiction? You could have taken some elements from that and bring it into here. I also wish his wife was in the book because when we find out that she got taken out, it's just not very satisfying. Like, it's 1,000 times more interesting if they have to find a way to get her out. I also think that it would have been cool at a certain point they have to go into the book to find his wife. But nope, she's just outside. If the bad guy came out and he captured his wife at the very beginning of this story, and he has to go get his wife from the bad guy, it would have played out the same way as here, as her being in the book and then out of the book. So it just seems like an unnecessary middleman, and I actually think the middleman is much interesting than the direction they went with. I also wish that at the end of the movie, when he reunites with his wife, that there was an ounce of emotion. I couldn't have cared less about this journey. You know, at no point was I emotionally invested in what was going on with them. I also do think the second half of this movie is much more boring than the first half. It definitely slows down, and the ending I found to be very anticlimactic. Like, truly, like, you've got this giant cloud monster that comes into this world, and you're just like, oh no, how are they going to defeat it? And then she just reads, bad guys defeated, and that's it. Not really the most satisfying, and I'm a strong contender for the heroes should always hit rock bottom before the last act. If you look at a movie like Aladdin gets the lamp taken from him, Jafar gets him, takes control of the genie, kidnaps Jasmine, and throws Aladdin into the middle of nowhere. You're like, holy shit, like, how is Aladdin going to come back? How is he going to defeat Jafar? You know, and here the equivalent is if Jafar gets the lamp, makes his wish, and then within 2 minutes, Aladdin gets the lamp back and defeats Jafar. It's just like, you're missing out on a lot more stakes, on a lot more tension, on a lot more interesting finale. So, yeah, like, but look, this movie isn't good. Like, it's got heavily flawed. I do think Brendan Fraser and Paul Bettany all good in this movie, and they do keep it watchable. I do think there are some interesting directing decisions. I do think there are certain potential you see with the story, but as a whole, it's never as good as it should be. So I'm going to go ahead and give Inkheart a 3.5 out of 10. Okay, have you seen Inkheart? What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. Stay tuned for some more videos soon, and Gavin out.